So once you get logged in, this is the page you're brought to. And to get to the reports section, we just want to click up here on reports. There are currently 13 in the system. And so to run one, we click, we enter a date window, and we hit run. The database that I'm using is a copy of some older data, so I need to back these dates up a little bit so that I actually capture something. I'm just going to do that. The preset for this report, I think, was the previous month. And I click run. And so you can see on this report, we're tracking encounters, and we break them down by life course and also the location of the encounter. So in interpreting these numbers, there are two ways you can try to interpret what's going on here. If you use these arrows to scan to to skip to the end of the report, you'll see included in each report is a section called definitions. And here in somewhat plain English, we'll describe how the numbers on the first page of the report are derived. And so you'll see reference to specific forms and questions and values that we would expect in those for those questions when we're deriving our calculations. And then in most reports, the numbers that are calculated here are derived from data that is displayed on subsequent pages. And so you can verify the numbers you see on the first page of the report by hand counting the details if you so choose. And there's another, so we have the definitions here at the end. If we go back to the catalog, we also have a little link right here that will bring up a similar, will also provide you with the definitions, but it will also explain where all the percentages are coming from. So if I go back and I run the report one more time, you can see this box here, 33%. That's in the prenatal encounter percentage. So then if we go over to the documentation, we can see in the prenatal encounter percentage, that is being calculated as B divided by M. B is here and M is up here. So this kind of gives you a key to how we derive these numbers. And for the most part, they all work the same way. You have a date window. And you run. So, so there are two types of reports that accept two types of date ranges. Well, one accepts a range, the other accepts a single date. An example of that would be the performance measures report. You can see we only have one date here to enter. So these reports, typically, the date you enter here is going to be the first day of the year that this report is going to calculate data for. So you'll see if I enter June 29th, 2021, and I click run on the performance measures report, it calculates 4 quarters worth of date ranges. The first being June 29th, 21 through September 28th, 21, and so on until we get to June 28th, 2022. So it's important that you back that date up, because if you would put something for, say, today, it's going to calculate forward. And as you can see, the report is empty because there's no data from the future in the system. So if things look a little off, check these quarterly windows to be sure that you've input the right date here. And let's see, I mean, I could go through each one. They're fairly self-explanatory with the documentation and the definitions, but again, and you can see the demographics report. We break down clients by age, insurance, race, ethnicity, the details that contribute to the totals, and finally, definitions of where this information is found in the system. Does anybody have any questions so far? None? Any questions about any other parts of the site?
Well, Bill, could you show us in the report itself the functionality for exporting to, say, a CSV PDF?
Oh, certainly. That's a good idea. So I'll use this as an example again. We run the encounter frequency report. Wide 2-year window there. We have some options here at the top for saving these. We can print them directly. That'll bring up a, your the print dialog that you're used to. And then there's also this icon that has a little old school floppy disk. You can export the report into any of these formats. Word documents, we have Excel, PDF, and it's just a matter of clicking and it downloads like any other file. And there we have it in Excel.
One thing I'd like to mention is when you download into Excel, it saves as best as it can, the formatting, but it's not always great for saying doing calculations. So you see like how it's merged all these cells here. If you send it out as a CSV file, it will not try to save formatting and everything come row to row. It's a little bit easier sometimes to do a CSV if you're going to be doing calculations on it.
And we could do an example of that one. Here's CSV. Opens again in Excel. And you can see there's formatting is gone, but at least the numbers are all in the same column. And you have all your details as well, which we could. So that is the long and short of the report catalog. Some of them are large and complicated, and for the most part, it has been just me working on these. And like any other human, I make mistakes. If you ever find anything that you think seems incorrect, it might be. Ronkai has been helping me a great deal over the past year and a half, trying to verify all the numbers and to make sure everything is accurate. And so we are quite confident, but there's a lot of calculations in here. So if anything ever seems off, a support ticket can always be used to ask us questions about anything pertaining to the system. So please feel free to get in touch.
I have a question for the client demographic report, or I'm sorry, the birth risk factors.
Yeah.
It shows that there's unknown trimester for 5 people. What's the easiest way? Because going through 220 files isn't fun to try to see what you have incorrectly put in. So is there an easier way to be able to get that information? Because if you have it right here, unknown trimester, you have 4.
You have 4.
Well, how would I know? Because I printed it out and we look at the ones we've done that and we'll go and we don't see the mistake. It doesn't, or if we updated it, didn't do anything.
So kind of have to look in a combination of places. So first at the end, here we have the descriptions of how we come up with those. So when we're trying to deduce which trimester, we're looking at any prenatal visit. Now, so we're looking at the most recent screening assessment or update form, right, prior to the birth. And so that's the first step would be, when was the child born? Then you can locate the proper update form. Because if there's a screening assessment and then 2 updates and then a child in a timeline, so to speak, we're not going to be taking the questions from the screening assessment. We're going to be taking them from the most recent update prior to the birth of the child. And then we're focusing on the question, any prenatal visits? Then if yes, the expected date of delivery. So it's those 2 questions. And so what happens sometimes is we can't deduce from those data points the correct trimester. For instance, and so in the definition for unknown trimester, you can see it, any prenatal visits is a yes, but when we look at the date of prenatal visit, it's later than the expected date of delivery, or that date of prenatal visit is missing. So we can't tell. We know that there was a prenatal visit because the answer was yes, but in trying to figure out when, we can't, because the date that was entered doesn't jive with the expected date of delivery. So the timeline is off, essentially.
So yeah, so I've gone, our number was a little higher, like 13 missing. So I went through every single record to look at those questions, see if they corrected. If it was missing, I updated it, made sure that the screening matched the pregnancy, because that threw it off too, if the numbers weren't right, stuff like that. But I'm still left with 4. And I went through every case and I can't figure, except for one, because the client was closed before she delivered. I don't have any way to know how to update that. Is the percentage low enough not to worry about it, or is there any other way that you can help us?
We can certainly help with things like that.
Okay.
When you run that report, if you can print it and save it, and when you submit a support ticket, you can attach it to the ticket. Or you can just explain in the ticket the discrepancy that you're noticing. For us to investigate, it's important to include as much information as possible so that we can replicate the scenario and we can look exactly where we need to look. So a printout of the report is perfect because we know the program it was run for and we know the date window. And so we can go in and really investigate, and we'll see those same 4 cases that are off. And then we can dig behind the scenes and look at the data directly in the database, and we can figure those out to a T. But it's really just a matter of just getting the conversation started. We're always happy to help. But again, so if I went back to the beginning of this report, if I was trying to do this on my own, we see we have 4 with an unknown trimester. So if I were to go to the details here, we have no expected delivery dates. Oh, now this looks like, yeah. Well, now looking at this, I can see why you're confused, because it doesn't look like you would be able to deduce this from the data.
I mean, we did for some of them.
You were able to figure out for some.
It was figure it out. And we reduced, I mean, right now from October to June, we have 0, unreported and 0. But it's when we, you know, it was really difficult. We didn't know what we were doing and putting all the files in and not knowing exactly what the question entailed.
Right.
So we had to go back a few times to update. And so if we look at from the beginning, we still have missing information, but I don't know, you know, and then again, if it's a closed case, it's hard to update stuff compared to now. If it's an open case, I'm able to ask the client if the information isn't, if the information is missing. So, but yeah, it doesn't tell at all. And sometimes we're like, we found it and we corrected it. And when we go back to the report, it doesn't change the number. So that's confusing too. So, I mean, we'll reboot it and everything to see, you know, maybe that's what it is, but it doesn't change the number. So we found a mistake and it didn't make a difference. So that's me too.
I can only suggest that you put in a support ticket and start a conversation, because we can always take care of that kind of stuff. And we're happy to help. It doesn't, you don't have to let things like that linger. You know, we can always provide insight and help you fix whatever needs to be fixed.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
But we just, you know, we don't know sitting on our side of the fence, you know. It takes you guys to kind of to start the conversation. And yeah, Lara, I see you've had the issue too. Again, if you have a printing out the report that you see the discrepancy in and sending that to us, we can investigate and explain it fully. Anyone else have any questions?
I wondered if for supervision purposes, would you be able to, like, you know, outreach events, the worker provides information, puts their name in. Is there any way that we can say, like, if I had Mrs. Thomas, how many outreach events she did for the month, instead of having to look through everything? Is there any way or something that you can do to help produce that?
Yeah, essentially that would, so you're talking about summarizing this section, the contacts and the outreach events?
it's like how many workers. So if the worker says that they participated in 5 events that month, is there any way that I can say, put the worker in and say how many how many outreach events did you do, instead of having to look at everything,
right.
opening it up?
Yeah, I would have to be a new report. I mean, if there's data in the system, then we can report on it. But it's just
that would be beneficial for us, because we have a requirement of how many outreach activities you do. And so we go over it, and it's a lot of work going back in and seeing if they did the information that they needed to.
So we do have, well, no, that's more concerned with I think this report is concerned with the initial contact. Yeah, that's not really helpful. So yeah, there's only 13 reports now. This can certainly grow. And then typically we'll work with folks from DOH to come to an agreement on what the report should include. And so yeah, certainly possible. Larry says, has the DV with no partner been addressed? Yes, so I am actually gonna work on that today. So Lara is referring to let me just go in here. In our screenings section and on the screenings report, you see we have the score column. And on domestic violence, you either get, if all the scoreable questions are answered, there will be a score. If one is not answered, if one of the 4 are not answered, incomplete will be displayed. And Lara was concerned because let me pull up the item real quick. Obviously, if number 3 is answered no partner, these cannot be answered, but the screen is completed. So we're going to make a small change so that rather than incomplete, if no partner is selected in that drop down there, we're going to display no partner. And so along with that, we're going to update the completed screenings report. So that a no partner selection on the was that question number 3 would contribute to this count here. And then also in the display, it would also be noted here as no partner rather than incomplete. So three points there for the same reason.
So when you have a discharge and say they moved or you weren't able to do the last screenings in the discharge, is there any way we can let you know that the client isn't available during discharge to do the screenings again? And then, because at times if they move or if they don't want to be in the program, they're not going to want to do screens. So we should have a way to indicate that to you.
That the client does not want to be screened.
Right, like at discharge, it asks for you to complete the screens again at discharge.
Oh, right, yeah, sure.
So we're not, if the client moved or the client, that's a lot of work to close a client if they're not being compliant or.
Right, sure, it's almost
like
impossible.
So,
yeah.
there should be something that says, you know, the client refuses to do the screen or something, because then they're left blank, like we didn't do anything.
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. Let's see if I can get it.
You know, they could be lost to follow up after a couple of months, even though you met the goals and objectives, and then they fall out. What do you do?
Well, at this point, there's really no way to track that in the, I mean, there's this screening result. We do have refused here.
Yeah, but okay, it couldn't, if they moved and they didn't tell us, it's not even a refusal. It's, we're not able to complete it because there's no contact with the client. So
yeah,
in those cases, you know, some clients, like we just had a client, a new worker leave, and then clients are refusing to get a new worker. And so they want their closed case, and we close them, and they're not willing to talk to do the screens. So there should be indication with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something to be considered. But yes, you are correct. Current state of the system cannot capture that.
I mean, I'll write it up and ask for it in the report if we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Wishes.
Yeah, because I mean, even like the thing you brought up yesterday about the well visit on the case detail page. I made those code changes yesterday. That update is going to show in the system probably next week or the week after. Okay. So a lot of these little things that you notice, we can take care of, you know. Some require more of a conversation than others, but you know, Bronchi and I converse regularly, and you know, can come to a consensus on what needs to be done pretty quickly. So yeah, any concerns like this, you know, can come through a support ticket, or if you wanted to contact DOH directly, and then they can come to me. However we get the conversation started, you know, is fine. The system is quite malleable. You know, we can make adjustments and changes as we go along without issue.
That's great. So I'll start on my wish list.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
No, it helps improve the system too, you know?
Yeah, because I want to be able to like benefit from it and use it for supervision.
Right. Yeah. As a case management tool, it's useful, and we can certainly make it more useful. Absolutely. But getting feedback from users about how to make it more useful is just, I mean, it's priceless, really, because you guys are the ones in there using it, and then actually out in the real world, you know, practicing what this system is trying to represent. So you really, you know more than us here, for sure. Kim is asking about a feature that allows forms to be saved but not forwarded to the supervisor until it is complete. I know this is requested in the past. I don't think it's not currently being worked on, but I think the concern is that sometimes these forms are rather long, and maybe a worker is going to enter only a portion of it now and finish it later. The problem being that the partially completed form shows up as something to be approved when it's not even finished. And so now supervisors are wasting their time looking through half-finished work. And so again, it's, you know, something that just has to be planned and talked out. But yeah, we can get it on the wish list, absolutely. Anybody else? How are we doing on time, Chris?
We got plenty of time if anyone has any more questions. Do you want to just pop to the homepage real quick? Just want to see under quick links, there's a user's manual right there on the right-hand side. And that's all I had. If no one has anything else, we can give you back 25 minutes of your life and end the meeting. Okay, well, thank you everyone so much. Again, it's gonna take us a couple of weeks probably to edit these last two meetings and put them up on the YouTube. We'll try to create links here under technical support to those trainings, so new people can come and take a quick look. And hopefully then we'll also be updating the user's manual on the regular.
I'm a senior web developer.
So, oh wait, got 3 new messages. Have a good day. Oh, okay. What's the YouTube? We'll give you a link to the YouTube on here under the quick links at some point. The YouTube should be, I believe it's called CHSR, is the name of the channel. Marguerite just asked, just to reiterate what Elizabeth was saying, the discharge form contains numerous repetitions. Why is it possible to omit parts of the question? Why is it possible to omit parts of the question? I'm not quite following the question there. Bill, maybe you have a better idea? Under the chat?
Yes. Well, the discharge form contains, it's essentially the same as an update and the screening assessment, although the contents of those forms are essentially the same. But the bits and pieces are not required. I think that's what Marguerite means by numerous repetitions.
Yeah, I mean, like, can they, discharge form is like, it's an application, you're doing an application over again with the discharge form. Can they take you know, out some of the question that's not?
Certainly. I think a lot of the stuff that was put on the form is there in case you are able to collect it, but we're not necessarily looking to, you know, we're not requiring it. So if I go to the discharge form and I scroll all the way to the bottom and I hit submit, you can see what is actually, there's a minimal amount that's required. The date, the worker, the reason, health insurance, and did your health insurance lapse? What else do we have? And currently pregnant, which is right there. So most of the stuff does not have to be filled in. You know, the screens are not necessary. They really, I think when this was originally constructed and everything was kind of thrown into one form, the idea was fill it out if you can, but you don't have to. Does that help at all?
I mean, it depends what you answer from the discharge question all the way up. It depends what you answer, because the form gonna ask you to fill.
No, that's a good point. Like if I say yes here to currently pregnant, and then I submit.
Check this discharge reason. It depends the reason.
Yeah, reason.
The reason, and then you're gonna have to fill out the whole form.
Let's see. I'm gonna just fill in the stuff that has the stars on it. Type of health insurance, okay. So minimal, right? I only answered number one, number two, number three, 5A, 5B, 5C, and 6B. The rest is all optional. Though there may, there's some conditional logic, like if I said no, I might have to do this one. I forget, but certainly, the screens and the issues section, they don't have to be filled out.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Like I said, it'll be a couple of weeks. We'll create links on the homepage and so new users can take a look at the YouTube videos when they go up. Have a great day and have a great 4th of July weekend. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.
Good one.
Thank you.